Welcome to Eternal Elements Learning Podcast brought to you by Tiasa Online. These podcasts are a part of the audio certificate programs on Tiasa Online. You're free to take these podcasts on your desired portal also, should you only wish to learn on the go. Thank you so much for engaging on these podcasts, and you can connect with the author on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Hi, this is Niket Karajagi from Eternal Elements, brought to you by Tiasa Online. We've discussed the 15 strategies. However, the problem is, how do you decide which strategy to deploy? How do you club these strategies? How do you decide which strategy to deploy where and what should be the outcome with which you should deploy those strategies? Boston Consulting Group came up with a fascinating framework. The BCG model categorizes organizations in 4 different types. It's important to visualize this particular model. It comprises of 4 boxes, 4 quadrants, and these 4 quadrants typically depict 4 different situations. Now, when you're analyzing which particular strategy to deploy, there are 2 factors that you're working on. The first factor, of course, is the market growing? And if it is, at what rate? So, on the vertical axis, you have the market growth rate, categorized as low and high. And while the market may be growing or not growing, what is the firm's relative market share? The market share can be high, the market share can be low, which results in a 2x2 matrix, and therefore the 4 quadrants. Let's talk about these 4 different types of organizations, and then we will decide which strategies to deploy and how to deploy. Boston Consulting Group says that the first particular firm that we pick up for discussions is the easiest one, which is called the dog. Now, what happens in a dog? A firm is called a dog when the market share is low and the market growth rate is also low. Obviously, it's gone to dogs, right? Because the market isn't growing and even their own relative market share is low, it's poor, and therefore it's called dog. Dogs typically need to be divested. They need to be hived off. They need to be sold off. And we did discuss the strategy when we were discussing the 15 grand strategies of divestiture. Dogs must be let go. But what if you're able to practice the turnaround strategy? And what if your folks in the organization are competent enough and they say, hey, you know what? We will turn it around. And therefore, dogs can also be turned around. It's your call how you go about it. Now, the dogs can be turned around only when you invest in new technology, you move into a new product, you move into a domain which is growing, and then you start applying the grand strategy so that you gradually move into a market share which progressively grows. Therefore, either the dogs are divested or you can turn them around. We also have organizations which are question marks. These are typically organizations or firms which have a low market share while they're operating in a market that's growing very, very fast. It's growing at a high growth rate. Now, obviously, it's called a question mark because the firm is doing something wrong, right? Because the market is growing, but their market share isn't good enough. That's the question mark. Why isn't the organization doing good enough? And therefore, you deploy the strategies to build. Amongst the 15 grand strategies, there are a whole lot of strategies available which help you to consolidate the business, to build the business. You can pick and choose the strategy that really works for you. Build typically is an objective of increasing the market share even at the expense of short-term earnings and cash flows. Invest, move on, get into market, get into product, understand the customer's need, build it up, and that's how you're going to be operating in a market that's in a high growth rate, and then once you are accepted in the market, your relative market share also goes up. Then you have the companies which are operating in a high market growth, and they also have very high market share. Amazing companies. They're called the stars, obviously. They're called the stars because they're operating in high growth market, and they also have a very high market share. What do you do with companies which are star? You hold on to your position, right? You got to be a star. And this is a strategic mission that's geared to protect the business unit's market share as well as its competitive position. How do you do that? Well, again, the same thing. You can apply any of those 15 grand strategies and check what is it that you need to do so that you can hold on to the market share. And then, obviously, since these companies tend to use a lot of cash, they're actually great consumers of cash because they have to consolidate, they have to hold, and therefore, you must also go lean. You must also look at your business value chain and decide what you want to hold and what you don't want to hold. You know? But ultimately, the organization's got to hold as long as it remains a star. The fourth type of organization they talk about is a cash cow. It's important. When you're a diversified firm, it's important to have certain products or certain business units that are cash cows. And what are cash cows? They are operating in a market growth rate which is low, and they're also operating in a relative market share which is high. So what's happening here? Their market share is high, whereas the market isn't growing. That means they're doing better than the competition. And because they're doing better than the competition, they're actually bringing in a lot of money. And when they bring in a lot of money, what do? You harvest, right? You're going to use that money to fund your stars. You're going to use that money to fund your question marks. You're going to use that money to fund your dogs if there's a turnaround that's happening. Harvesting is a mission which has the objective of maximizing short-term earnings and cash flows, even at the expense of the market share. So even if the market share is declining, you don't need to worry. You've got a lot of money coming in, and you're actually using that money in the short run to deploy it so that the businesses grow. It's important to have cash cows, and those cash cows actually bail you out when push comes to a shove. Boston Consulting Group's model framework of the 2x2 matrix is an amazing framework. I've been teaching this framework for a long time. I've been using this framework in my own organization. And I tell you, it's amazing. Go ahead, use the BCG Matrix, and I'm sure you'll be able to realize which of the 15 grand strategies need to be deployed. There is, though, a variant of this 2x2 matrix from BCG, and that's called the business unit mission, and that's the model on the General Electric's planning model. Now, it's a portfolio matrix in which on the vertical axis you have the industry attractiveness, which is as good as the growth rate of the market, and on the horizontal axis you have the business strength, which is as good as the factor of the relative market share, because the relative market share defines your business strength, your core competitiveness. And then this particular framework operates in strong, average, and weak. Therefore, it turns into a 3x3 matrix. So there are 9 boxes there. And in those 9 boxes, again, you can decide what strategies you want to really build in each of the cells. And then you can decide whether you want to get into investments, grow strong, you want to invest and grow selectively, you want to dominate, you want to delay, you want to divest, you want to harvest or divest, or you want to earn and protect, or you want to invest and grow selectively, or you want to earn and protect to hold, or you again harvest or divest. So it's important that you just get onto the internet and check this model out. It's called the General Electric Planning Model. It's the portfolio matrix. Have a look at it. But to sum it up, it's primarily one of the variants of the 2x2 matrix of the Boston Consulting Group. Though I don't know whether it's been inspired by that particular model, but the point is that this model also works. Thank you very much. This is Niket Karajagi signing off from Eternal Elements, brought to you by Tessa Online. Stay tuned, stay connected. There are a lot of podcasts still that we're going to talk about in the strategy. See you in the next podcast. Thank you so much.